The reason you're struggling right now financially, physically, emotionally, has nothing to do with the economy, your past, or other people. I say this with love. You are struggling because you have been imagining wrongly. You've been using the most powerful force in the universe, your own consciousness, to create the very conditions you're trying to escape. But here's the beautiful truth that will set you free. The same law that's been working against you can work for you the moment you understand it. Your imagination is the golden thread, connecting your inner world to your outer circumstances. And today, I'm going to teach you the exact spiritual technique, practiced by mystics for thousands of years, that turns thought into tangible power. Not someday. Right now. Now. I know you may have watched many videos about positive thinking, about manifestation, about the law of attraction, and perhaps you're wondering, what makes this different? Why should I spend the next hour and 20 minutes listening? Let me be absolutely clear with you, because I respect your time and your longing for real answers. By the end of this teaching, you will understand the precise spiritual mechanism, not vague theory, but actual inner workings, of how imagination produces concrete results in your physical world. You'll learn why affirmations have failed you, why thinking positive left you exhausted and disappointed, and most importantly, you'll receive the exact technique that actually changes your subconscious programming. I know what you're going through. You're tired of trying so hard and seeing so little change. You're exhausted from battling negative thoughts all day long. You've read the books, said the affirmations, visualized until you're frustrated, and still your circumstances remain stubbornly the same. You feel stuck. You wonder if maybe this mind power stuff simply doesn't work for people like you. Perhaps you secretly believe you're the exception, that something is fundamentally broken in you. Let me tell you the truth, my dear friend. Nothing is wrong with you. The only problem is that you've been given incomplete instructions. It's like someone handed you the keys to a magnificent automobile but never taught you how to drive. The power is there. The vehicle is perfect. You simply need the understanding. What makes this approach different? I'm not going to tell you to think positive, while your subconscious screams the opposite. I'm not going to give you a list of affirmations that feel like lies. Instead, I'm going to teach you the ancient spiritual law that operates whether you believe in it or not, just like gravity. This law has been known by mystics, saints, and sages across every tradition. It's in the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the ancient Egyptian texts, but it's been hidden in religious language that most people misunderstand. When you truly grasp what I'm sharing today, you'll stop being a victim of your thoughts and become their master. You'll understand why Jesus said, "Whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing, ye shall receive." That word believing is the key. It means to accept as true in your imagination, to feel it real, to experience it subjectively before it manifests subjectively. You'll learn to do this naturally, easily, without strain or force. Now let me tell you where my credibility comes from. For over 30 years, I've counseled people from every walk of life. From poverty to wealth. From illness to health. From despair to joy. I've seen the law work identically for everyone who applies it correctly. Not because I'm special. Not because I have some supernatural gift. But because I discovered and tested the actual principle that governs the transformation of consciousness into form. And now, I want to give this understanding to you. You have a choice before you right now. You can continue doing what you've been doing, struggling, forcing, hoping, or you can spend this next hour learning the one thing that will change everything else. Not superficially, not temporarily, but at the causal level, where all lasting change occurs. I promise you this. If you stay with me, truly listen with an open heart and mind, you will leave this teaching with both understanding and method. And that combination, my friend, is the alchemy that turns imagination into power. Now, before I give you the principles, let me paint some pictures for you. Because truth is always better understood through story than through abstract theory. These accounts come from real people, though I've changed identifying details to protect their privacy, and from my own journey. As you listen, notice how the same law operates in each situation. I once counseled a woman who came to me in tears. She was a widow, left with 3 young children, and a house that was going into foreclosure. She had 30 days before she'd be evicted. She sat in my office and said to me, "Dr. Murphy, I think I'm cursed. I've prayed and prayed, but God doesn't hear me. I don't know what to do anymore. I looked at her with compassion and said, "My dear, you're not cursed. You've simply been using the law backwards. You've been praying from a consciousness of lack, of fear, of desperation. And your subconscious mind, which is the creative power within you, has been faithfully creating more circumstances that match that feeling." She looked confused. So I explained it to her this way. I said, "Every night before you go to sleep, you're going to do something different. Instead of lying in bed worrying about losing your home, instead of imagining the worst, you're going to imagine something very specific. You're going to imagine that the house is completely paid for. You're going to walk through your home in your imagination and touch the walls with gratitude, knowing it's yours, free and clear. You're going to feel the relief in your body, the peace in your heart. You're going to feel what it's like to be completely secure." "But Dr. Murphy," she said, "that's a lie. The house isn't paid for. I'm about to lose it." I said, "In your outer world that's correct. But we're not working with your outer world right now. We're working with your consciousness, and consciousness is the only reality. What you make real in consciousness must become real in your world. That's the law." She was desperate enough to try. Every single night, for 30 days, she practiced this technique. She would lie in bed and imagine walking through her home, feeling grateful, feeling secure, feeling that it was completely paid for. At first, it felt impossible. Her mind would fight her. The fear would creep back in. But she persisted. And something remarkable began to happen. She started to feel differently during the day. The panic lifted. A quiet confidence grew in her. She found herself smiling at her children, instead of worrying constantly. 3 weeks into her practice, she received a phone call. A distant relative she barely knew. Someone she hadn't spoken to in over a decade, had passed away and left her a sum of money in the will. Nobody expected it. Nobody could have predicted it. The family was shocked. But there it was, a completely unexpected inheritance. And it was exactly enough to pay off her mortgage completely, with some left over for her children's needs. When she came back to see me, she was crying again, but this time with joy and wonder. She said, "Dr. Murphy, I don't understand how this happened. This relative barely knew me. We never had a relationship. How could this be?" I said, "My dear, you made it happen. Not through willpower, not through manipulation, not through luck, but through the proper use of your imagination. You stopped asking God to change your circumstances and started thanking Him from the feeling that it was already done. You stopped treating God like a reluctant banker up in the sky and started understanding that God is your own wonderful human imagination. When you imagined it done, when you felt it real, your subconscious mind, which is connected to infinite intelligence and orchestrates all of life's circumstances, moved heaven and earth to make it so." She said something I'll never forget. She said, "I realized I had been praying for 30 years, but I was praying wrong. I was always begging for what I didn't have, which only reinforced in my consciousness that I didn't have it. Every prayer was an affirmation of lack. Now I understand. Prayer is not begging. Prayer is accepting that it's already done. Prayer is feeling the reality of the answer before the answer appears." Let me tell you about a young man who came to me years ago. He was well qualified, had a good education, excellent references, strong work ethic, but he couldn't get a job. He'd been rejected from hundreds of positions. Hundreds. He'd been searching for over a year. He was beginning to believe something was fundamentally wrong with him, that he was somehow cursed or marked for failure. I asked him to describe what happened before each interview. He said, "Well, I prepare thoroughly. I research the company. I practice my answers. I dress well. I arrive early. But then, as I'm sitting in the waiting room, I start imagining them rejecting me. I see them shaking their heads. I imagine them saying, 'No thank you, we've decided to go with another candidate.' I imagine walking out disappointed again. By the time I go into the interview, I'm already defeated. I can feel it in my body. I'm tense, anxious, expecting rejection." I said, "There's your problem, my friend. You're not being rejected because you lack qualifications. You're not being rejected because you're not good enough. You're being rejected because you've been imagining rejection so vividly, with such emotional intensity, that your subconscious mind accepts it as inevitable, and then you unconsciously create the very thing you fear. Your energy is defeated before you even speak. Your body language communicates rejection. You're broadcasting the frequency of failure. He said, "But Dr. Murphy, I'm just being realistic. I've been rejected so many times. It's natural to expect it." I said, "You're not being realistic. You're being historical. You're taking your past and projecting it into your future. But the past doesn't determine the future unless you carry the past forward in your imagination. The future is being created right now by what you're imagining right now. Every moment is a new beginning, if you choose to make it so." So I gave him a very simple technique. I said, "From this moment forward, after every job application you send, after every interview you schedule, you're going to do one thing. You're going to close your eyes and imagine shaking hands with your new employer. You're going to hear him say, 'Congratulations, welcome to the team, we're so glad to have you.' You're going to feel the firmness of that handshake. You're going to feel the relief and joy flooding through your body. You're going to feel yourself walking out of that office as an employed man. You're going to make it so real in your imagination that it feels like it's actually happening." "But what if I don't get the job?" he asked. "Won't I just be setting myself up for disappointment?" I said, "That's not your concern. That's not your business. Your business is to control your imagination, not to worry about the outer results. The outer results will take care of themselves when your inner world is in order. Your job is to dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled. Let the law handle the how and the when." He agreed to try it. Every single day, multiple times a day, he would imagine that congratulatory handshake. He'd do it before bed. He'd do it upon waking. He'd do it while standing in line at the grocery store. He'd do it while sitting in traffic. He saturated his consciousness with that one scene. He made it his inner dwelling place. 2 weeks later, something remarkable happened. A company that he hadn't even applied to, a company that wasn't publicly hiring, that had no job postings, contacted him out of the blue. Someone had recommended him. A former colleague had mentioned his name in passing to someone else, and that person knew someone at this company. The chain of events was so unlikely, so perfectly orchestrated, that it seemed miraculous. They brought him in for what was supposed to be an informal chat, just a getting to know you conversation. But by the end of that conversation, they offered him a position, better salary than he'd hoped for, better role than he'd expected, better company culture than he'd dreamed possible. And yes, the hiring manager shook his hand and said, "Welcome to the team." When he came back to thank me, tears in his eyes, I said, "Don't thank me. Thank the law. Thank the principle. You did the work. You changed your imaginative activity, and your outer world changed to match it. You see, your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. When you repeatedly imagined that handshake with emotional intensity and sensory detail, your subconscious accepted it as real and began orchestrating circumstances to make it physically real. Doors opened, people thought of you, opportunities appeared. Not by chance, by law. Now let me share something more personal with you. Let me tell you about my own healing, because this is when I truly understood the power we're discussing today. This is when theory became lived experience for me. There was a time in my life when I struggled with a physical condition that doctors told me was incurable. They were kind but firm. They showed me charts and studies. They said, "This is something you'll have to live with. Manage it, but don't expect healing. This is chronic. This is permanent." I tried everything the medical field offered. I took their prescriptions. I followed their protocols. I changed my diet. I exercised. But nothing changed. The condition persisted. And here's what troubled me most. I was a spiritual teacher at the time, teaching others about the power of mind, about consciousness, creating reality. Yet I wasn't applying the deepest truth to my own situation. I was praying, yes. I was affirming health, yes. I was visualizing wellness. But I was doing it all from a consciousness of illness. I was asking God to heal me, which implied I was sick. I was hoping for healing, which implied I didn't have it. I was trying to convince myself I was well, which meant I was actually convinced I was sick. Then one night, in my darkest hour, when the pain was particularly intense, and I felt most hopeless, something shifted within me. A quiet voice, perhaps my higher self, perhaps infinite intelligence speaking through me, said, "Stop begging and start being. Stop asking and start accepting. Stop hoping and start knowing." I remembered the teaching of Neville Goddard, a great mystic, who understood these laws more deeply than almost anyone. He said, "Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Don't ask for it. Don't hope for it. Don't visualize the process of getting it. Assume it's already done. Live from the end." So I stopped begging. I stopped asking. I stopped the desperate prayers and the hopeful affirmations. Instead, I created a very specific scene in my imagination. I imagined going back to my doctor for a checkup. I imagined him examining me, running his tests, looking at the results. And then I imagined him looking up at me with a smile of genuine astonishment. I imagined him saying, "I don't know how to explain this. By all medical standards, this shouldn't be possible. But you're completely healthy. Everything is normal. The condition is gone." I imagined shaking his hand, feeling the joy in my chest, the relief flooding through me. I made it so vivid, so real, that I could feel the texture of his hand, hear the tone of his voice, see the expression on his face, feel the paper of the test results he'd show me. I made it more real, in my imagination than my actual physical condition was in that moment. Every night before sleep, I would replay this scene. Not once, but over and over until I fell asleep in the feeling of perfect health. During the day, whenever fear or doubt arose, whenever I felt the symptoms, whenever I was tempted to return to my old consciousness of illness, I would return to that scene. I lived in it. I dwelt in it. I made it my inner reality. I refused to accept the evidence of my senses. I chose to accept the evidence of my imagination. And here's what happened. Within 3 months, every symptom vanished. Completely. Not gradually. Not partially. Completely. When I went back to my doctor for a scheduled checkup, the scene I had been imagining played out almost exactly as I'd pictured it. He ran his tests, looked at the results, looked at my previous charts, looked at me, and said those exact words. "I can't explain this. According to everything we know, this shouldn't be possible. But you're perfectly healthy. There's no sign of the condition." He wanted to know what I'd done. What treatment had I tried? What specialist had I seen? I smiled and said, "I changed my consciousness. I changed what I imagined and felt to be true about myself." He didn't understand, of course. The medical model doesn't include consciousness as a creative force. But I understood. And that understanding changed my entire life, and my entire ministry. This was when I truly grasped it. This wasn't wishful thinking. This wasn't positive affirmation. This wasn't even faith in the traditional sense. This was the deliberate use of imagination as a creative force. Imagination is not idle fantasy. It is the workshop where your future is created. It is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It is God in action within you. When you learn to use it consciously, deliberately, skillfully, you become a creator rather than a victim. Let me tell you one more story. Because I want you to see how this law works identically regardless of the situation, regardless of the person. I counseled a businessman who came to me with his entire world falling apart. His business was facing bankruptcy. Creditors were calling. His marriage was in trouble because of the financial stress. His health was declining because of the constant anxiety. He wasn't sleeping. He wasn't eating well. He was at the absolute bottom, contemplating things I don't even want to mention. He said to me, "Dr. Murphy, I've tried everything. I've worked harder than I've ever worked. I've cut costs. I've borrowed money. I've prayed. I've hoped. Nothing works. It's like I'm cursed. It's like the universe is against me. Maybe I'm being punished for something." I said, "You're not cursed, and you're not being punished. But you are creating your own hell through your imagination. Tell me, what do you think about all day long? He said, I'm constantly worried. From the moment I wake up until I finally fall asleep, I'm imagining losing everything. I see my business closing. I imagine bankruptcy court. I imagine my wife leaving. I imagine myself sick and alone. I picture the worst-case scenario in vivid detail. I can't help it. That's what's happening. That's what's real. I said, that's exactly the problem. You're using your imagination, the most powerful creative force you possess, to create more of what you don't want. Every time you vividly imagine disaster, every time you feel the fear and dread of failure, you're impressing that image on your subconscious mind, and your faithful subconscious mind says, okay, you're showing me disaster, so I'll create more circumstances that match disaster. You're literally creating your own destruction through misuse of imagination. But how do I stop? He asked, desperation in his voice. These thoughts just come. They're automatic. They feel true. I said, you don't stop the thoughts. You can't fight thoughts. What you resist persists. Instead, you redirect your imagination. You become deliberate instead of automatic. You become conscious instead of unconscious. Starting today, you're going to practice something different. At least twice a day, morning and night, you're going to sit quietly for 10 minutes and imagine the opposite of what you fear. You're going to imagine your business thriving. You're going to imagine contracts being signed. You're going to imagine money flowing in. You're going to imagine your wife smiling at you with love and respect. You're going to imagine yourself healthy and strong and at peace. And most importantly, you're going to feel it. You're going to generate the actual feeling that these things are already true. He was skeptical. He said it felt like lying to himself, like denying reality. But he was desperate. So he committed to the practice. Every morning, before starting work, he would sit in his car in the parking lot for 10 minutes and do this imaginative exercise. He'd see contracts being signed. He'd see money flowing into his accounts. He'd see customers satisfied and coming back. He'd see employees happy and productive. He'd imagine coming home to a peaceful, loving wife. He'd feel himself strong and energetic and confident. He did this with as much emotional intensity as he could muster. At first, nothing changed outwardly. In fact, things seemed to get worse for a few weeks. More creditors called. More problems arose. His wife had another argument with him. He was tempted to give up, to say, see, it doesn't work. But I encouraged him. I said, the outer world always resists at first. It's the old momentum. It's the hardened forms of your old consciousness. But if you persist in your new state, the outer must yield. It's law. So he persisted. He kept returning to his desired imaginal state, morning and night, without fail. And then, slowly, things began to shift. An old client who owed him money suddenly paid the entire debt. A new opportunity appeared from a completely unexpected source. A chance conversation led to a new partnership. His wife noticed the change in him. He was less anxious, more present, more like the man she'd married, and she softened toward him. His health improved simply because the crushing stress lifted. Within 6 months, his business was not only saved, but actually growing. He'd found new revenue streams he hadn't imagined before. His marriage was better than it had been in years. His health was restored. His whole life had transformed. When he came to thank me, he said something profound. He said, I was praying for everything to change, but I was imagining the worst constantly. I was praying with my words, but creating with my imagination, and imagination always wins. The moment I changed what I was imagining, everything changed. That's exactly right, I told him. Your imagination is the true prayer, not the words you say, not the rituals you perform, but the images you dwell in, the feelings you sustain, the states you inhabit. That's what creates your reality. That's what the law responds to. Now, do you see the common thread running through all these stories? The widow with the house, the young man seeking employment, my own healing, the businessman facing bankruptcy. It wasn't willpower that saved them. It wasn't positive thinking alone. It wasn't even prayer in the traditional sense. It was always, a shift in imaginative activity that preceded the outer change. The inner always comes first. The invisible always precedes the visible. Consciousness always creates circumstances. Let me now give you the principles behind these transformations, because, when you understand the law, you can apply it to any situation in your life. When you grasp these principles at a deep level, you become a conscious creator, rather than an unconscious victim. Here is the first and most fundamental principle you must understand, and everything else builds on this. Consciousness is the only reality. Not matter. Not circumstances. Not conditions. Consciousness. Everything you experience in your outer world is the outer manifestation of your inner states of consciousness. This isn't philosophy, my friend. This isn't abstract theory. This is the fundamental law of being. Let me break this down in the simplest way possible. Your consciousness equals your awareness of being. Right now, you are aware of being something. You're aware of being a person with a name, with a history, with circumstances, with problems or blessings. That awareness, that consciousness of being, is the creative power that shapes your world. What you are conscious of becomes what you experience. Most people are conscious of their problems all day long. They wake up thinking about their debt, so they remain in debt. They focus on their illness, so illness continues. They dwell on their loneliness, so loneliness deepens. They imagine their limitations, so limitations persist. They are conscious of lack, so lack expands. The great shift, the shift that changes everything, is becoming conscious of the solution instead of the problem, becoming conscious of health instead of illness, becoming conscious of abundance instead of lack, becoming conscious of love instead of loneliness, becoming conscious of power instead of limitation, becoming conscious of the fulfillment of your desire instead of its absence. You see, and this is crucial, you don't attract what you want. That's where most teachers get it wrong. You don't attract your desires. You attract what you are conscious of being. If you are conscious of being poor, you'll attract circumstances that confirm your poverty. If you are conscious of being unloved, you'll attract situations that validate that belief. If you are conscious of being powerless, life will seem to prove you right at every turn. But, and here's the beautiful liberating truth, if you become conscious of being prosperous, not by lying to yourself, not by denying your current circumstances, but by actually shifting your inner state, prosperity must flow to you. If you become conscious of being loved, love appears from unexpected places. If you become conscious of being powerful, circumstances bend to your will. If you become conscious of being healthy, health manifests in your body. This is what the Bible means when it says, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Not as he thinks in his head, with random passing thoughts that come and go, but as he thinks in his heart, in the depth of his consciousness, in his habitual dwelling place, in the state he lives from day after day. Now here's the deeper meaning that most people miss entirely. Why does fighting problems make them stronger? Because when you fight something, you're conscious of it. You're giving it your attention, your energy, your emotional force. And whatever you're conscious of, expands in your experience. The war on poverty creates more poverty. The war on drugs creates more drug problems. The war on cancer keeps cancer in the collective consciousness. What you fight, you feed. Why does trying hard create resistance and exhaustion? Because trying implies that it's not done. Trying implies lack. Trying implies struggle and effort. And your consciousness of trying creates more circumstances that require trying. You never arrive because you're always in the state of trying to arrive. Here's a spiritual truth that will transform your life when you truly grasp it in your bones. You are not in your body. Your body is in your consciousness. You are not in your circumstances. Your circumstances are in your consciousness. You are not in the world. The world is in you. You are the container, not the contained. You are consciousness itself, having an experience of limitation only because you believe you are limited. Everything visible came from the invisible realm of consciousness first. The chair you're sitting on existed as consciousness, as imagination before it existed as wood and fabric. The device in your hand existed as consciousness before it existed as metal and glass. Every building, every invention, every work of art, every relationship, every condition in your life existed as consciousness before it existed as physical form. From a quantum perspective, and modern science is finally catching up to ancient wisdom here, the field of infinite possibility responds to observation. The observer affects the observed. The observer, consciousness isn't passive. It's not just witnessing reality. It's creating reality. Your consciousness is not a mirror reflecting the world. Your consciousness is a projector creating the world you experience. Now let me address a common misconception that trips people up constantly. People think consciousness means what I'm thinking about right now, this moment. They think consciousness is their current thoughts. But no. Consciousness is much deeper than that. Consciousness is the state you're living from. It's the feeling underneath your thoughts. It's the habitual dwelling place of your mind. It's the tone of your inner world. It's the frequency you're broadcasting. You might think about wealth for 5 minutes while you're doing affirmations in the morning, but if you live from a consciousness of poverty for the other 23 hours and 55 minutes of the day, if you worry about money, if you feel lack, if you see yourself as poor, you'll experience poverty. You might affirm health in the morning, but if you dwell in a consciousness of sickness all day, if you focus on symptoms, if you identify as sick, if you tell everyone about your condition, sickness will persist. The key is to shift your habitual state of consciousness. Not what you occasionally think about for a few minutes, but what you consistently live from hour after hour, day after day. And that brings me to the second great principle. Your imagination is the workshop of God. This is not metaphor, my friend. This is not poetic language. This is literal truth. Your imagination is not separate from God. It is God in action within you. When you imagine, you're using the same creative power that spoke worlds into existence. You are creator and creation simultaneously. Now listen carefully to what I'm saying, because this will change how you see yourself forever. Imagination is not mere fantasy. It's not idle daydreaming. It's not wishful thinking. It's not entertainment for a bored mind. Imagination is the creative power behind all manifestation. It is the womb in which all form gestates before birth. It is the invisible substance from which the visible world emerges. Everything man-made that you see around you existed as imagination first. The building you're in was imagined by an architect before a single brick was laid. The car you drive was imagined by designers before any metal was shaped. The phone in your hand was imagined by inventors before any circuit was soldered. Every business, every relationship, every work of art, every human achievement existed as imagination before it existed as reality. The inner always precedes the outer. This is law. This is how creation works. This is the sequence of manifestation. Nothing can appear in your outer world that didn't first exist in your inner world. Nothing. No exception. Ever. And here's the revolutionary insight that will change your life if you truly take it in. Your present circumstances, the good ones and the bad ones, are the hardened images of your past imagining. Everything you're experiencing right now is old news. It's the crystallized form of what you imagined and felt days, weeks, months, or even years ago. Your current reality is yesterday's imagination made visible. So, if you don't like your circumstances, if you don't like the life you're living, you must change your imaginative activity. Not next week when you feel more ready. Not when circumstances improve and it's easier to imagine good things. Now. Right now. Because what you imagine now is creating your future now. The future is not predetermined. It's not written in the stars. It's not fate or destiny in the sense of something imposed on you from outside. The future is being created right now by what you're imagining right now. Most people don't realize this. They think the future is approaching them like a train on fixed tracks. But the truth is, you're laying the tracks. You're directing the train. You're creating the future moment by moment with your imagination. Imagination is the scissors that cuts you free from what was, to create what can be. You're not bound by your past, unless you continue to imagine from your past. You're not limited by your current circumstances, unless you continue to imagine from your current circumstances. Every moment is a choice point. Every moment you can imagine something new and begin creating a different future. Let me give you some practical examples to make this concrete. The inventor sees the invention in his imagination before he builds it in reality. Thomas Edison didn't stumble upon the light bulb by accident. He imagined it vividly. He saw it working in his mind's eye. He held that image and that faith through 10,000 failed attempts because the inner vision was more real to him than the outer failures. The Wright brothers imagined human flight before any human had ever flown. They saw themselves soaring through the air. They felt it. They knew it was possible, because they made it real in imagination first. Then they worked to make the outer conform to the inner. The architect experiences the building in his mind, before he ever draws a blueprint. He walks through it imaginatively. He sees the rooms, feels the space, notices how the light falls. He experiences the building completely in his imagination. Only after that inner experience does he create the outer plans, and eventually the physical structure. The healer, whether doctor or mystic, must feel the patient's wholeness, before the body reflects it. The great physicians of history understood this. They didn't just treat symptoms mechanically. They held an image of perfect health for their patient. They saw the patient whole and well. And that image, held with faith and feeling, had creative power. It communicated to the patient's subconscious. It activated healing. And you, my dear friend, you must experience your desire subjectively before it manifests objectively. This is the law of creation. This is how it works. First the inner, then the outer. First the invisible, then the visible. First the imaginal, then the actual. First consciousness, then circumstance. When the Bible says God created man in his image and likeness, here's what it really means. God gave you the same creative power he possesses. That power is imagination. You are not a helpless creature, at the mercy of a capricious universe. You are not a victim of fate or chance. You are not powerless before circumstances. You are a creator in training. You are an individualized center of the same consciousness that creates galaxies. You are God compressed into human form, learning to use your creative power deliberately. This brings me to the third principle, and this is the secret that most people miss, even when they understand imagination intellectually. It's not enough to visualize. It's not enough to picture what you want. You must add feeling. Feeling is the secret ingredient that impresses your subconscious mind. Feeling is what makes imagination creative, rather than just mental entertainment. Let me explain why feeling matters so profoundly. Your subconscious mind, which is the creative power within you, accepts what you feel to be true. Not what you wish were true. Not what you hope becomes true. Not what you think about occasionally. But what you feel is true, in the depth of your being. Thoughts without feeling are like seeds without water. They don't germinate. They don't grow. They produce nothing. Feeling is the tone of consciousness. Feeling is the signature that tells your subconscious, this is real. Pay attention to this. Create this. When you feel something deeply, when you feel it persistently, when you feel it with natural conviction, your subconscious mind accepts it as reality and begins the process of manifestation. Not gradually, not eventually, immediately. The moment you sustain the feeling, the law begins to work. Now, let me clarify what kind of feeling I'm talking about, because people often get this wrong, and then wonder why their techniques don't work. I'm not talking about emotional excitement. I'm not talking about pumping yourself up with enthusiasm. I'm not talking about artificial positive emotions that you force yourself to feel. That's exhausting and unsustainable and ultimately ineffective. I'm talking about the quiet feeling of natural possession. The feeling you would have if your desire was already fulfilled. Not the feeling of wanting it. Not the feeling of hoping for it. Not the feeling of wishing it would come. But the feeling of having it. The feeling that comes after the desire is fulfilled. The relief. The satisfaction. The peace. The naturalness of possession. How would you feel if your financial problem was already solved? You wouldn't be jumping up and down necessarily. You'd just feel relieved. Peaceful. Secure. There'd be a quiet confidence. A natural ease. That's the feeling. How would you feel if your health was completely restored right now? You wouldn't necessarily be ecstatic. You just feel comfortable in your body. Grateful, perhaps. But mostly just normal, natural. Well, that's the feeling. How would you feel if your relationship was healed, if that person loved you, if the conflict was resolved? You wouldn't be in a state of constant excitement. You'd just feel safe, connected, content, loved. That's the feeling. This is the feeling you must generate and sustain in your imagination. And here's where people make their biggest mistake. They try to force positive emotions. They fake enthusiasm. They pretend to feel good, while everything in their body is screaming that things are bad. They exhaust themselves trying to maintain an artificial high. And then they crash, and feel worse than before. That's not what I'm teaching you. I'm teaching you to feel from the end, not for the end. To feel from the state of the wish fulfilled. To assume the feeling that would be natural, if your desire was already real. It's not force. It's not pretense. It's an assumption. It's a choice. It's a shift in state. Another common mistake is mistaking emotional intensity for the right feeling. People think they need to get themselves worked up into a frenzy of positive emotion, like they're trying to convince God or the universe through sheer emotional force. That's not it. In fact, the most powerful manifestations often come from the quietest, most natural feelings. The feeling of course. The feeling of, it is done. The feeling of, naturally. Feeling is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. Feeling is what connects consciousness to form. When you sustain the feeling of your wish fulfilled, when you dwell in that feeling, when you return to it again and again until it becomes your natural state, the subconscious mind, which controls all involuntary functions of your body, and connects you to infinite intelligence, must, by law, manifest it in your world. Not because I say so, not because it's a nice idea, but because this is how the creative process works. This is the mechanics of manifestation. This is law. Now let me tell you about the nature of your subconscious mind, because understanding this will help you work with it rather than against it. Your subconscious mind is completely impersonal. It's not moral. It's not judging you. It doesn't decide whether what you imagine is good or bad, true or false, desirable or undesirable. It simply accepts and manifests your dominant impressions. Think of your subconscious mind as the most faithful servant you could ever have. It never rests. It never sleeps. It never questions. It never argues with you. It never says, "Are you sure you want this?" It simply says, "Yes," and brings into being whatever you consistently impress upon it. This is both the tremendous power and the potential danger of this law. The power is that once you learn to impress your subconscious correctly, with the right images and the right feelings, it will move mountains for you. It will orchestrate circumstances that seem miraculous. It will bring opportunities that seem impossible. It will manifest your desires in ways you couldn't have planned or predicted. The danger is that your subconscious is just as faithful in creating what you don't want as what you do want. If you impress it with fear, it creates fearful circumstances. If you impress it with images of lack, it creates lack. If you impress it with sickness, it creates or perpetuates sickness. It doesn't judge. It doesn't discriminate. It simply creates. Your subconscious is like soil. Rich, fertile, receptive soil. It will grow whatever seeds you plant in it. If you plant seeds of fear, anxiety, worry, and doubt, it grows fear, anxiety, worry, and doubt. If you plant seeds of lack, limitation, and poverty, it grows lack, limitation, and poverty. If you plant seeds of sickness and weakness, it grows sickness and weakness. But if you plant seeds of faith, abundance, health, love, and power, it grows those just as faithfully. The soil doesn't say, "Oh, you're planting weeds. Let me protect you from that." No. The soil says, "You planted seeds. I'll grow them." It's neutral. It's impartial. It's mechanical in its faithfulness to law. This is why you must be so careful what you imagine. This is why you must become conscious of your habitual imaginal activity. Your subconscious is working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It never stops. Even while you sleep, it's working. It's constantly creating. It's constantly manifesting. It's constantly arranging circumstances to match your inner states. Now here's how most people tragically misuse this incredible power. They imagine worst-case scenarios constantly. They rehearse arguments that haven't happened. They picture themselves failing before they even try. They live in fear of future problems. They dwell on past failures and hurts, replaying them over and over in imagination. They worry about their health, their finances, their relationships, and their faithful subconscious mind says, okay, if that's what you're dwelling on, if that's what you're impressing me with, I'll create more of that for you. But the proper use, the conscious, deliberate, skillful use, is to impress your subconscious with desired outcomes. To repetitively imagine what you want, until it feels natural and real. To be consistent in your imaginative diet. To become a good gardener of your inner world. To plant good seeds deliberately and tend them carefully. You wouldn't plant a beautiful garden and then throw weed seeds in it every day, would you? That would be insane. Yet that's what most people do with their consciousness. They plant one positive image in the morning, during their affirmation practice, and then they throw in 100 negative images throughout the day. And they wonder why nothing beautiful grows in their life. They wonder why their garden is full of weeds. Here's the beautiful assurance I can give you, and this should fill you with hope. This law works the same for everyone. It doesn't care about your past. It doesn't care about your education. It doesn't care about your race, your gender, your age, your background. It doesn't care about your current circumstances, or how long you've been struggling. The moment you change the impression, the moment you shift your imaginative activity, your subconscious begins to change your outer world. Immediately. Not tomorrow when you've suffered enough. Not when you've earned it. Not when you're worthy. Immediately. Because the law is impersonal and faithful. This brings me to the fifth principle. And this one transforms how you approach prayer entirely. Real prayer is not begging God to change things. Real prayer is not asking a distant deity to intervene. Real prayer is imagining from the end. Real prayer is thinking from the fulfillment of your desire. Feeling that it's already done. Living in the consciousness of answered prayer. Let me redefine prayer for you, because most people have learned it completely wrong. They've learned a form of prayer that actually works against them. Prayer is not asking, it's accepting. Prayer is not hoping, it's experiencing. Prayer is not someday in the future, it's now, in consciousness. Prayer is not begging, it's claiming. Prayer is not waiting for something outside you to change. It's changing something inside you. Prayer is the art of believing you already have what you asked for. Jesus taught this clearly, explicitly, without ambiguity, when he said, "Therefore I say unto you, whatsoever things you desire, when you pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." Look at that verb tense carefully. Believe that ye receive. Not will receive someday in the future, when God decides to answer. Receive. Present tense. Right now. This means accept it as done now, in consciousness, before you see any evidence in the physical world. This is the secret that changes everything. This is what makes prayer effective rather than futile. You must accept your desire as already fulfilled in consciousness before it manifests in the physical world. Not after you see it. Before. Not after circumstances change. Before. This is faith. This is belief. This is what gives prayer its creative power. Now let me tell you why traditional prayer, the way most people pray, so often fails. When you beg, you're reinforcing lack. Every time you say, "Please God, give me this," you're affirming that you don't have it. You're coming from a consciousness of lack, and that consciousness creates more lack. When you plead with God to act, you're positioning yourself as a helpless victim, waiting for rescue. You're denying the God power within you. When you pray from the problem instead of from the solution, when you focus on what's wrong, rather than on what you want, you're simply recreating and reinforcing the problem. The correct method, the method that actually works, is this. You enter the silence of your own mind. You turn your attention away from the outer world and inward to the realm of imagination. You construct in your mind's eye the scene that would exist if your prayer were answered. You don't imagine the process of getting what you want. You don't imagine yourself struggling toward the goal. You imagine the end result. The fulfillment. The having. The doneness. If you're praying for healing, don't imagine yourself slowly getting better day by day. Don't imagine treatments working gradually. Imagine yourself already healed. See your doctor looking at you with amazement, and confirming your perfect health. Feel yourself strong, vital, energetic, pain-free. Experience the reality of complete wellness right now, in your imagination. If you're praying for financial abundance, don't imagine money coming to you. Don't imagine yourself waiting for a check, or hoping for a raise. Imagine yourself already financially secure. Feel the relief of having more than enough. See yourself checking your bank account with satisfaction and gratitude. Pay your bills in imagination with ease. Experience the reality of abundance right now. You feel the reality of it as if it's happening right now. You make it vivid and real in your imagination. You engage all your senses. You make it more real in imagination than your current circumstances are in physical fact. You sustain that feeling. And then, and this is crucial, you give thanks. You give thanks that it is done. You give thanks from the feeling of completion, not from the feeling of want. Gratitude is the acknowledgement of receipt. Then you let it go. You release it to the creative power within you, knowing the law is working. You don't keep checking to see if it's manifesting. You don't worry about how it will happen, or when it will happen. You don't try to control the process. You trust. You rest. You know. You live from the end. You occupy the state of the wish fulfilled, and let the subconscious and infinite intelligence handle all the details. This brings me to the sixth and final principle before we move to practice. You must persist in your new assumption until it hardens into fact. And then you must enter your Sabbath, a state of rest, trusting the law to work. Both movements are necessary. Both are essential. There's an active phase and a passive phase to manifestation. The active phase is repeatedly imagining the desired end. Not once. Not casually. Not when you feel like it. But repeatedly, consistently, faithfully, persistently. You return to your desired state over and over and over until the new state feels more natural than the old state. Until it's no longer an effort to assume it. Until it becomes your habitual dwelling place. This is not desperate repetition. This is not frantically trying to make something happen. This is not forcing or straining. This is like wearing a comfortable garment. You put it on naturally. You return to it naturally. You dwell in it naturally. It becomes you. You become it. How long do you persist? Until the new assumption becomes your natural state. Until you can think of your desire without anxiety or doubt. Until you have that quiet inner knowing, that unshakable certainty, that it's done. You'll know when you've reached this point because you'll stop asking and start thinking. You'll stop trying and start being. You'll stop hoping and start knowing. Then comes the Sabbath. The Sabbath is the rest that comes from knowing it is finished. In the Bible, God rested on the seventh day not because he was tired, but because the work was complete. You cease from mental labor and doubt. You stop trying to make it happen. You stop worrying about how, or when or where. You stop checking for evidence. You stop looking for signs. You live as if it's already done, because, in consciousness, it is already done. The Sabbath is not laziness. It's not giving up. It's not resignation. It's the confidence that comes from knowing the law is working. It's the peace that surpasses understanding. It's living from the end while the outer world catches up to your inner reality. It's the rest of faith. When you truly believe, you stop asking and start thanking. When you truly know, you stop trying and start being. This is the sign that your prayer has been heard and answered, not that circumstances have changed yet in the physical world, but that you have changed. That you're dwelling in a new state. That you've shifted consciousness. That you're living from the end. And when you're living from the end must manifest. It's law. You'll know you've succeeded. You'll know you've impressed your subconscious successfully. When you can think of your desire without that anxious, rasping, needy feeling. When you have that quiet inner knowing that it's taken care of. when you feel peaceful about it. When you catch yourself naturally thinking from the wish fulfilled rather than about the wish fulfilled, that's when you enter your Sabbath, and that's when the manifestation rushes toward you. Because the outer world must conform to the inner world. It's not a maybe, it's not a hope. It's law. Now, you have the understanding. You see the law clearly. You understand consciousness, imagination, feeling, the subconscious, prayer, and persistence. You've heard the stories. You've grasped the principles. But, understanding without application is like having a recipe without cooking the meal. Knowledge without practice is useless. So let me give you the exact practices, simple, doable, powerful, that will turn this wisdom into tangible results in your life. The first practice I'm going to teach you is the bedtime imagination technique, and I cannot overemphasize how powerful this is. This is perhaps the single most important practice I can give you. The moments before sleep are golden. They are sacred. They are the most powerful time to impress your subconscious mind. Why? Because as you're falling asleep, your conscious mind is drowsy. Its defenses are down. Its critical faculties are relaxed. The gate between conscious and subconscious is wide open, and your subconscious mind is most receptive to suggestion and impression. Here's exactly what you do. Step by step. Lie in bed, body completely relaxed, ready for sleep. You're not trying to stay awake. You're preparing to fall asleep, but you're going to fall asleep in a specific state. Close your eyes, and construct a simple scene in your imagination that implies your wish is fulfilled. The key word is implies. You don't imagine the thing itself necessarily. You imagine a scene that would naturally occur if your wish were already fulfilled. Make this scene first person. This is crucial. You are in the scene, experiencing it from the inside, not watching yourself in the scene from the outside like you're watching a movie. You're the actor, not the audience. You're seeing through your own eyes in the scene. Add sensory details to make it vivid and real. What do you see? What colors? What shapes? What people? What do you hear? What sounds? What voices? What words? What do you feel physically? What are you touching? Is it smooth or rough, warm or cool? The more senses you engage, the more real it becomes to your subconscious. But most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, feel the natural emotion that would accompany this scene. Feel the relief, the joy, the satisfaction, the peace, the gratitude. Feel the naturalness of having what you desire. This feeling is what impresses the subconscious. The scene is the vehicle, but the feeling is the power. Loop this scene 3 to 5 times. Play it through, then start again from the beginning. Keep looping it until you fall asleep in the feeling. If your mind wanders, and it will, don't get frustrated. Don't fight it. Just gently guide yourself back to your scene. It's natural for the mind to wander. Just keep returning. Let me give you an example to make this concrete. If you desire financial freedom, don't imagine piles of money. Money is not the end, it's the means. Imagine the scene that would naturally occur if you had financial freedom. Perhaps you're checking your bank account on your phone, and you see a large balance, and you feel satisfied and secure. Perhaps you're at dinner with friends and you pay the bill easily, without any concern about the cost. Perhaps someone is congratulating you on a successful business deal. Perhaps you're signing papers on a home you just purchased outright. Choose one simple scene. Keep it simple. Don't make it complicated. And make it imply that the thing is done. Then add the sensory details. See the numbers on your bank statement. Feel the phone in your hand. Hear the satisfied sigh you make. Feel the relief and peace in your body. Loop it until you fall asleep. Do this every single night for at least 30 days without fail. Don't miss a night. Don't make excuses. This is your spiritual practice. This is your creative work. This is how you impress your subconscious and change your future. And I promise you, your outer world must conform to your inner imaginal activity. It's not hope. It's not maybe. It's law. It's as certain as the law of gravity. The second practice is what I call the state shift exercise. And this is for throughout your day when you find yourself in a negative state. Because let's be realistic. You're not going to feel positive and empowered every moment of every day. You're going to feel worried sometimes. You're going to feel anxious, fearful, doubtful. That's normal. That's human. The question is, what do you do when you notice yourself in that negative state? Don't fight it. Don't suppress it. Don't pretend it's not happening. Don't judge yourself for feeling it. Instead, shift states using this simple technique. First, notice the negative state. Bring awareness to it. Name it. Say to yourself, I notice I'm feeling anxious about money right now. Or I notice I'm feeling worried about my health. Or I notice I'm feeling lonely and unloved. Just acknowledge it without judgment. Then pause and ask yourself this powerful question. How would I feel if this were already solved? Not how will I feel someday in the future when it's solved, but how would I feel right now, in this moment, if this problem were already completely solved? If the worry were unnecessary because the thing was handled. Imagine being in that solved state right now. If your money problem were solved, how would you feel? You'd feel relieved, peaceful, secure, like a weight had been lifted. Step into that feeling right now. Just step into it. Choose it. Assume it. Let your body relax into that feeling. This is important. Drop your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Soften your belly. Take a deep breath. Let the feeling of the solution wash over you and through you. Let your body experience relief, even though nothing has changed externally yet. Stay there for 30 seconds to a minute. That's all it takes. You're not trying to stay in this state all day long. That would be exhausting and unrealistic. You're just practicing the shift. You're training your consciousness to move from problem to solution, from lack to fulfillment, from fear to faith. Then return to your day from this new state. And you'll notice something interesting. Things look different from this state. Possibilities appear. Solutions come to mind. Ideas arise. Synchronicities occur. People show up to help. Doors open, because you've shifted the state from which you're observing your world, and that shift changes what you attract, what you notice, and what you create. The third practice is the congratulatory scene, and this has produced remarkable, almost miraculous results for so many people, because it captures the essence of fulfillment in a single simple act that your subconscious can easily accept. Here's what you do. Imagine a friend or loved one congratulating you on your success. It could be your spouse, your best friend, a parent, a colleague, anyone whose opinion matters to you. See their face clearly. See their smile, their expression of genuine happiness for you. Hear their voice saying words like, I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. I knew you could do it. Well done. You deserve this. Feel yourself accepting their congratulations. Feel the pride, the satisfaction, the joy, the validation. Feel that it's real. Feel that it has actually happened. Not that it will happen someday, but that it has happened. It's done. They're congratulating you because it's done. Repeat this scene daily, especially before sleep. When someone congratulates you, it implies without any doubt that the thing is accomplished. It implies you've already achieved it. You've already received it. And your subconscious mind accepts this implication and works to make it so. The subconscious works through implication, not through direct statement. You're not imagining the journey. You're not imagining the struggle or the process. You're not imagining yourself working toward the goal. You're imagining from the destination. You're living in the end result. You're experiencing the after. And when you live there consistently in imagination, when you feel it real, the path unfolds naturally. The means appear. The way opens. The fourth practice is cultivating the thankful state, and this is perhaps the ultimate practice, because gratitude is the acknowledgement of receipt. When you're truly grateful for something, you're acknowledging that you have it. And when you acknowledge that you have it in consciousness, you must have it in fact. That's the law. Throughout your day, as often as you remember, silently give thanks. Thank you that it is done. Thank you that I am free. Thank you that I am whole. Thank you that I am prosperous. Thank you that I am loved. Thank you that I am healthy. Thank you that my prayer is answered. Not thank you that it will be done someday when conditions change. Thank you that it is done now, in consciousness, in the only place that matters. Feel the gratitude as if your prayer is already answered, because in truth, it is. The moment you accept it in consciousness, it's done in the causal realm. The physical manifestation is just the shadow catching up to the substance, the form catching up to the consciousness. Gratitude is the acknowledgement that you've received. And in spiritual law, in the law of consciousness, acknowledgement precedes manifestation. When you're truly grateful, you're broadcasting the frequency of having, not wanting. You're in the state of possession, not the state of lack. And having attracts more having. Gratitude generates more to be grateful for. The fifth and final practice is what I call the daily reset, and this is for maintaining your new state, for starting each day consciously, instead of automatically. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you engage with the demands of the day, before you let the world program you, spend 5 minutes resetting your consciousness. Sit quietly upon waking. Take a few deep breaths. Remember who you are. You are not just this body. You are not just this personality with its history and limitations. You are infinite consciousness, having a temporary human experience. You are the creative power of the universe, individualized and focused in this form. You are God in action. Ice. Decide how you want to feel today. Not how you'll feel based on what happens to you, but how you choose to feel regardless of what happens. This is your power. You don't have to wait for circumstances to make you feel good. You can choose your state first, and then circumstances will conform to match it. Imagine one scene that implies your major desire is fulfilled. Just one simple scene. The same one each day, or a different one, whatever feels natural. Feel it done. Feel it real. Dwell in that state for just a few minutes. This sets the tone for your entire day. Then rise and go about your day from that state. Carry that feeling with you. Return to it whenever you remember. Don't let the outer world dictate your inner state. You dictate your inner state, and then the outer world must change to match it. This is the discipline of a true spiritual practitioner. This is what it means to be a conscious creator. My dear friend, we've covered so much ground today. We've journeyed deep into the mystery of consciousness and creation. Let me distill it all into one simple truth you can carry with you always. You are not a victim of circumstances. You are not at the mercy of a capricious universe. You are not powerless before the events of your life. You are consciousness itself. And consciousness is the only reality. Everything you see around you, everything you experience, everything that seems so solid and fixed, all of it, is consciousness. Pushed out, made visible, crystallized into form. Your imagination is not a toy for idle amusement. It's not entertainment. It's not escape from reality. It is the creative workshop of God within you, and when you learn to use it deliberately, consciously, skillfully, you become a conscious creator, rather than an unconscious victim. You become the author of your life, rather than a character in someone else's story. Remember these 3 keys above all else. First, feel it done. Not someday in the distant future when conditions are perfect, but now, in consciousness, which is the only place that truly matters. Experience the fulfillment before the physical manifestation. Live in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, until that feeling becomes more natural, more habitual, more real than the feeling of lack or limitation. Second, persist in your new state. The old patterns will try to reclaim you. They've had years, perhaps decades, to become established. Your circumstances will seem to contradict your new assumption at first. The evidence of your senses will argue against your imagination. People will tell you you're foolish, unrealistic, delusional. Your own mind will doubt and question. But gently, lovingly, persistently, keep returning to your desired state. Keep returning to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Keep dwelling there until it becomes your natural home. Third, enter your Sabbath. Rest in the confidence that the law is working. Cease from anxiety, doubt, and mental struggle. Live as if it's already done, because in consciousness, it is already done. Trust the process. Trust the law. Trust the infinite intelligence within you that knows how to transform consciousness into form. Know that what you've made real in your imagination must, by immutable law, become real in your world. Not because you're special or chosen, not because you've earned it or deserve it, but because this is simply how the law works. Consciousness always externalizes itself. Always. Let me give you an affirmation, a declaration of truth, that you can repeat until it becomes the very fabric of your being. Say this with me now. Feel it as you say it. Let it sink into the depths of your consciousness. I am infinite consciousness, expressing in this human form. My imagination is the creative power of God within me. What I imagine and feel to be true must, by law, by inevitable law, manifest in my world. I accept this truth. I claim my good. I claim my health. I claim my abundance. I claim my joy. I claim my freedom. I rest in the certainty that it is done. And so it is. Now, my final word to you before we part. The power is within you right now. Not developing, not growing, not coming from somewhere else. Already present. Fully present. You don't need to become worthy of this power. You already are worthy because you exist. You don't need to earn it through suffering or sacrifice. It's your birthright simply by virtue of being conscious. You simply need to accept it, believe in it, and use it. Go now, and practice what you've learned. Don't just understand it intellectually. Don't just agree with it philosophically. Actually practice it. Test the law. Prove it for yourself. Apply these techniques faithfully for at least 30 days, and watch what happens. And when you see the results, and you will see them, if you're faithful to the practice, come back and share your testimony in the comments below. I want to hear how your life transforms. I want to hear about the miracles, the synchronicities, the unexpected blessings, the manifestations that will occur when you apply these principles with faith and consistency. If this teaching resonated with you, if you felt that quiet knowing in your heart that what I've shared is true, that this is the missing piece you've been searching for, do me a favor. Click that subscribe button below, so you don't miss future teachings, where I'll go even deeper into these profound spiritual laws. We're going to explore prayer, healing, prosperity, relationships, and so much more. Give this video a like, a thumbs up, so that others, who are searching, can find it. The algorithm responds to your engagement. And there are countless people out there right now who desperately need this understanding. Your like might be what brings this teaching to someone who's ready to transform their life. And most importantly, please leave a comment below. Share which principle hit home for you most powerfully. Tell me which story resonated. Describe the change you're going to create using these techniques. Share your own experiences with imagination and manifestation. Tell me your successes and even your struggles. I read every single comment, and your stories, your questions, your victories inspire and encourage others who are just beginning their journey on this path. Remember, you're not alone in this. You're part of a community of conscious creators, spiritual practitioners, people who are waking up to their true power. We're all consciousness exploring itself, learning to use our divine creative power deliberately and skillfully. We're all learning to be deliberate creators instead of unconscious victims. We're all on this journey together. Until we meet again in the next teaching, I bless you with all my heart. I know the truth about you, even if you don't fully know it yet. You are infinite, powerful, and free. You are consciousness itself, temporarily focused, in human form. You have within you the power to create any life you choose. May you come to know this truth, in the depths of your being. May you step fully into your power. May you use your imagination wisely and lovingly. May you create a life that reflects the magnificent, divine being that you truly are. Thank you for spending this precious time with me. Thank you for being open to this truth. Thank you for having the courage to take responsibility for your consciousness and your creations. Thank you for being willing to change, to grow, to evolve, to become the conscious creator you were born to be. Now go forth and create your miracles. Go and be the conscious creator you were always meant to be. The power is yours. The law is faithful and impersonal, and works for everyone equally. Your transformed life, the life you've always dreamed of, the life you've always known was possible, awaits you. It's already real in consciousness. Now make it real in form. God bless you, my dear friend. Until next time.